I really just have come to recognize over many years of whether it's being in ministry or being in corporate America, we all are working towards becoming like Jesus. It doesn't make me or you or anyone better. It helps us to live life according to the pattern and the way that God ultimately wanted us to live.
People in your life, you know they should be in your life. If people are drawing you either closer to Christ or further from Christ.
Welcome to Faithly Stories, the podcast that brings you inspiring tales from conversations with church leaders as they navigate the peaks and valleys of their faith journeys through their ministry work and everyday life. Brought to you by Faithly, an online community committed to empowering church leaders. Learn more at faithly.co. Get ready to be uplifted and inspired on the Faithly Stories podcast.
Dr. Hayles, Mrs. Hayles, welcome to the Faithly Stories podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Lee, and I'm joined by guest host Vandalyn Kennedy. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Well, Dr. Hayles, we recently had you on the podcast where we dove deep on your journey, your ministry, how you found yourself in Christian education leading Roberts Wesleyan University. We talked about Roberts Wesleyan's next chapter, and something you said in that conversation really stuck with me. You talked about your better half, and you talked about marrying up.
Yes.
And so I just knew we had to do a follow-up conversation with that other half. So thank you for joining us today, Mrs. Hayles.
Glad to be here.
Yes. So let me start it off with this question. How did you two meet?
Well, let's hope at the end of this we have the same story. I was at Christ Church. I was at that time experiencing some challenges, and the person I was experiencing a challenge with, the mother of that person, says, "There's a church opening up in Montclair. Why don't you go there?" And I went there. I just go in, come out, go in, come out. You don't want anybody to know who you are. And I saw this young lady across the way. And I remember going up to her. It was enough courage. But that didn't work. She ignored me. Goodbye. She ignored me for probably about a year or so. But I kept on, pursuing. But something changed. The pastor of the church knew that I had some administrative gift. And so they have an annual conference every year. And he asked me to head up the conference. And so as I was heading up the conference, Maryann at that time was interested in the conference and wanted to be one of the volunteers. And so I thought this was a great opportunity to get close to someone. So I would arrange these meetings, but I had a special chair right here as part of the team, part of the core team. And so after that, we started having more conversation. One thing led to another, and we're here today.
What was it about Mrs. Hayles, Maryann at the time, that got your attention?
The number one thing was her ability to care.
Mm-hmm.
I could really see from her that she cared. And, at that point in time, I won't get into detail of this, but something had happened. And I remember she came up to me. Somehow she found out about it. She came up and said, "Oh my goodness, I heard that this happened. I'm so sorry. I've been trying to call you." And it's just like, she didn't have to do that. Right? Just getting to know each other, But that alone kind of got me like, wow, this person, not only smart, intelligent, all that stuff, NYU, all that good stuff, but also a caring woman. Not only that, a solid follower of Christ. Like if you talk of Maryann, not much gets said by Maryann without it not pivoting back to Christ. Wow. And so it's that conversation, and I can say this, our conversation here, that knowing her and being with her, someone said this, people in your life, they should be in your life if people are drawing you either closer to Christ or further from Christ. With her, she drew me closer to Christ. And so that's kind of the things that got me at the beginning.
That's incredible. Now, Mrs. Hayles, during that 1 year period where he was pining after you and you were ignoring him, was it intentional or were you focused on other things?
Well, unbeknownst to Rupert, first of all, I should say, unbeknownst to him, I knew that he was pursuing a degree at the time. Were you not, honey?
Yes.
And I can just sort of discern that he was very engrossed in this degree. So what I chose to do was I wanted to be his friend. Well, could I say that I was interested in him as a potential future mate or someone to court and date? I wasn't thinking about that at the time. What I was looking at is did we have anything in common? I saw him serving and he served and loved the Lord, but I needed to know a little bit more. So I would just randomly ask him questions about where he was in his life journey. There's one thing to your God journey, then there is your God life journey. And I started to notice that he was really very much consumed, if you will, engrossed in this degree. And I just felt, hey, get to know him, help him out. And he did go through, there was a little bit of a crisis that had arisen, a personal thing had arisen in his journey. And I remember having fallen asleep this one day, and the conference that he alluded to earlier, I wanted to be a part of that conference, but I had fallen asleep on my seafoam green couch, and I'll never forget it. And I was shaken in my sleep, call him. I had this impression that I needed to speak with him because something happened. And he didn't go into all the details, but I reached out to him.
I'll go into detail.
Okay, sweetheart. So that year was basically me just sitting back, waiting to see how things would unfold, getting to know him in a ministerial setting, but also as a friend. And then interacting with him at the conference was very important for me to see his integrity. I wanted to really see, because I was a lot older at the time too. And it wasn't about me wanting to date necessarily. You see, Alicia, it was more about me wanting to meet someone who I knew could potentially be my mate for life. I wasn't really into the quote unquote dating scene. So I waited. I took the back seat and I waited, interacted, got to know him spiritually and through the conference. And then, so that's how it evolved.
And how long have you been married now?
We are going to be celebrating on the 25th on July 7th.
Is that silver?
Yes.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Wait a second. I think is it 24?
2021.
2001 to 2025, so it's 24, right? 24?
I'm getting ready.
It's okay,
You just
babe.
told Terry was 50 years old. Oh, Terry Taper.
What?
They're 50 and we're 25. That's what he said.
I don't.
We got the math wrong. All right, so we got the math wrong. It seems like
Okay.
I'm jumping ahead because the friend
Yeah.
I did.
It's 50th anniversary.
One half of them.
You
Or one
are
half
aspiring for that century mark.
I'm going to get into big trouble after this thing is over with. But
That's what you're not going to get.
But it's 24.
Grace.
25 the next year.
Yeah.
I love that. So, Dr. Hale, I've heard men of faith say that the two most important decisions are the decision for Christ and then who they marry.
Mm-hmm.
And so you said you met this woman who was intelligent and all of that. I want to know from you, Mrs. Maryann, what's your story? And who's the person that he met?
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much, Vandalyn and Alicia, for asking me these awesome questions. Yeah, sure. Let me elaborate. So essentially, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, back in the 60s. And I was raised with my two siblings, my two brothers, one younger, one older. And our home was, it was a wonderful Italian home, albeit there was, as we often hear, this cliche used in society today, prevalence of dysfunctional. I was raised in a dysfunctional family. I'd like to classify and qualify, if you will, this dysfunction without with adding the dignity of the individuals in the story of dysfunction, if you will. So one of my parents, one of my primary caregivers, suffered and battled incredibly with a really debilitating mental illness. And unfortunately, wherever there's an environment where mental illness and all of that, those spirits are involved, it's going to have ramifications. It's going to have consequences on the family members. And unfortunately, with myself, it had immense consequences, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that it was impossible because of my age when I came to understand, like little by little, as I progressively began to live in this environment where it was fear-based. Everything was fear. So because mental illness, it restricts, it binds, it represses, and it just really like took a hold of me. And as a young child, not able to process all of these things because my executive function was there. The way I handled it was through survival. And because there was so much trauma involved in it, I at times I found ways to survive in that environment. I was very sheltered. I was essentially not able to go out and play like the normal child. I wasn't involved in any sports. I went to a fantastic Catholic school, got a great education, but it took a toll on me. And so I was also involved in some really debilitating self-harming behaviors, which years later I came to understand are more prevalent and very, very, very involved in today's generation. So I had that experience back in the early 70s, if you will, but I'm seeing it now in society, and it's very prevalent with mental illness with our youth. And so I continued in Catholic school all through middle school, went into high school, always maintaining my Catholic origins in my Italian American family. And I went to college. I got accepted into NYU. I really loved the village and the environment there. And I came to know Jesus Christ at the age of 19 in the Box Library at NYU. And I was on fire for Jesus. I wanted to know who this King of Peace was that was going to give me the peace that I needed. And so I immediately found a church in Staten Island. I was living, like I said, in Brooklyn at the time, went to a church in Staten Island, got involved quickly in a discipleship program because I knew the importance and the significance of it. And I was individuating at the time. I was finding out two things, not only who I was related to my family of origin and the consequences of the environment, but also I came to understand and know that there was this terminology that I was a daughter of God and I was created in the image of God. Wow. And I could have his spirit inhabit my spirit. And he was the King of Peace. And if he calmed the waters and calmed the storm, he could calm the raging waters in my soul. Wow. And so shortly thereafter, I had the intuition at a very young age that something wasn't right because, like I alluded to earlier, there was this self-harming behavior that repeated itself for over 3, even 4 decades of my life. But it kept me very close to the cross of Jesus Christ because I wanted answers. And my lifelong journey, my life journey and my God life journey coincided at that point. And I began to realize there was more to the picture. And that I could be healed and I could individuate and become all that God wanted me to be while all he had placed inside of me, my passions, were going to be realized in this life. And so, and I progressed later on in life. I went to a few different churches at the time. I also got very involved in inner healing and deliverance. I've been in so many different group settings when it comes to healing and deliverance and power of the Holy Spirit. And so Jesus has done an incredible work in my life, in my mind. He's given me a pure understanding, a sheer understanding that the veil has been removed. And, so
let me
and my pain.
May add something. So she kind of gave the context around her growing up and how much the Lord meant to her. While she's doing that, one of the things, an interesting point was she was being coy about it, but she was an accounting major and she spent time on Wall Street and did time there. And so when I met her, when she was at the church, we started to kind of go out And I think I used to drop her at the train station, go to New York, and come back, I pick her up. But she called me one day and said, the company's moving us to Houston. And I'm like, in my head, I didn't say it out loud. We just started this thing. What do you mean you're going to Houston? She said, well, we'll pray about it and we'll see how it goes. And then she said, I got to go. They're coming down with the packages. So they're coming to your office and going to tell her what's happening. Some people have even let go. And so by the time I pick her up from the train station, she is ready to go to Houston. I said, man, God answers prayer pretty quickly. I mean, that just stopped you right there. And all of a sudden, by the time train. And so Maryann was gone. Maryann lived for a year. She spent a year in Houston, Texas. I would go there 1 month. She would come here another month. And so we did that for over a year. And then part of it is we talked about it and said, okay, let's get married. And so I drove to Texas, packed up everything, brought her back. We drove back. I brought her back. And that's part of the story.
Thanks, honey. I honestly did not give my career. I can say this. I didn't give my career up for Rupert. There was a little bit more to it was a significant time for us because we knew that God had put us together and that we were moving towards getting married. But the one thing that most people don't even know is that God gave me a promise, when I was in Texas. And he said, you're going to set this department up, but I'm also going to deliver you in such a way that you will know it's me. Because one of the pieces of my journey was that I needed to be on a lot of different medications to function. And he said to me, I'm going to take you off every single medication. And I'm going to do it in 7 days. You are going to be off of that. And he did do that. Wow. He just told me, and I contacted my doctor. I ensured, hey, can I do this? What's the shelf life or the long life or the whatever life of the drug? Is it going to, and he just miraculously did it. He took me off of every single drug that I've ever was on. And all the antidepressants and so many different medications. Because, psychopharmacology is basically prescribing medication to treat symptoms. But my prayer to the Lord many years ago was, can you help me get to the roots of this stuff? Wow. And he said, I'm going to do it. You're going to need this for a period of time, but it's going to happen. And so that's another piece, a significant piece to my story is that I know what it's like to be on many different medications for many years of your life. And then all of a sudden, God doesn't, for everyone, it's different. Some people need to remain, but so that's another piece of the story. Wow. So, yeah.
And even to this day, just getting her to take a Tylenol for it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She said, I'm done with this. I don't need the pause. Interesting to see her.
Well, I think it was Pastor McLaurin who said that your greatest pain will become your greatest ministry. And just hearing you talk about your family, that you seem to really bring that to life.
Yes, and I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
Very grateful.
Well, it hasn't, so emotional healing and deliverance, that's not just your ministry. In a lot of ways, it's a shared ministry for you. How do you approach that as a married couple?
Oh, man. This is so interesting. So from my last time I was with you, one of the things I talked about, I'm a big left brain guy. I call them a recovering pace-setting leader. Yes. These are people, pace-setting leaders, are people who run through walls, get things done, but they get it done. They get to the top of the mountain, and there's dead bodies all around. So here I am, all left, a little to the right. And here is this young lady, majority right. Definitely left, but more right. So she was just strictly on the emotional one. She goes into a room and lights up the room. I'm one of those guys. I'm in the room. I'm exhausted. I got to get out of the room. She just loves that. And so here's what's so interesting is that I know for a long period of time that, didn't really realize that this part needed to be taken care of. And so, I don't know if I told the story last time, I had a 360 done evaluation when I was in a church. And when I got the evaluation back, it said what I was. I wasn't the most loving, caring person. I just wanted to get stuff done for God. But in doing so, a sheep is getting hurt. And so that was a point in time where I got 13 people told me who I was. Some of them include pastors. That made it a little bit harder to take. But then I had a choice. One, I could say, it's Vandalyn. She doesn't know anything about EQI. It's Alicia. She doesn't know anything. She's from Texas or New York. I could come up with all the kind of reasons. But when 13 people tell you something, and then you say, ultimately, God, is this true? And he said, I've been trying to get your attention for so long. And so for that day, that was Liberation Day for Maryann. She said, for so long. And so that part, I did a lot of work. I won't get into all the detail. We can ask questions about it, but did a lot of work on that. While at the same time recognizing that where her background was and where she came out of, that the emotional part means something to the human being.
Yes.
We might focus strictly on the intellectual side. And when you were growing up and you come on with your report card, no one ever said, how did you get along with Billy today? How did you get it? I was like, what did you get in chemistry? What did you get in that? And so now for us, we realize it's not just about the left side of the brain. It's the right side. When I was going through this process of trying to understand why I did what I did, we live out of our trauma. Mm-hmm. And I realized that I had stuff in my past that even today, even at that time, I was not dealing with. Pair myself with a young lady now with all that history. And we come together and I was like, whoa, look here. You talked about, somebody always says, whatever you go through, it's not for you. It's for somebody who God's going to send to you. And so me going through this stuff, understanding, learning about this part of her, going through her stuff, learning that. And then we see people, God send people our way that have these challenges and issues, and we can see them from a mile away. And from an inner healing perspective, where she gets into the deep stuff, into the what happened to you when you were 3. How did you process that? What did you do with it? Why is it that you're 3 now and you're 55 and you're behaving with some behaviors you're 3? And help people try to understand that. On my end, it's more on the emotional side of things and how it relates to leading people and making people better. So for both of us coming together, it just kind of made sense that God would lead us this way. I'm going to mention one thing that we're working on.
Oh, yes.
To tell you how crazy it is. We're driving along on a road, and it's me. I was driving. Maryann was here. Stephen is in the back. Savannah is in the back left. And I hit something.
Yes.
And the car just started going crazy. And so I said, everybody, everything is okay. She said, oh my goodness, what is happening? Is there something that Savannah started to cry. Stephen, what's Stephen doing? Stephen had another reaction.
He was attempting to calm Savannah.
He was trying to calm Savannah.
So the dynamics.
It dawned on me and us, like, we are operating out of what happened historically. And, we created this thing called a podcast. 5 traumatized people in the car. Because every person has a different reaction to an event. And you're reacting out of the event based on what happened.
The triggers.
See, in the past, there's some triggers. And so for us, it's like, okay, every person we see, we always are trying to but
assess,
what's happening. Assess.
When
she talks to people and she's coaching people, and it's always, okay, tell me what's going on. But then what's happening around there? Because 9 times out of 10, it always comes back to that. And there's the critical part. If you don't address that,
yes,
you will never get to where you need to. But God is always kind of pointing to you. And sometimes it's up to us to kind of listen to it and bear it. And she's just been phenomenal in that area.
I think, thank you, honey, and well said. I think that at the end of the day, it's none of our places to ever judge. It's our place to reach out with courage and compassion as in trying to understand. Because, today we see so many, even, let's say, leaders falling from grace. And my thing is, does anyone take the time to assess where have they been? What has happened in their journey? And it's not my place, it's not our place to judge. It's our place to understand and assess so that we can see the grace of God and the compassion of Jesus be made manifest in that particular. And it's beautiful. Nowadays I work with people, and this is what I'm teaching. I'm facilitating, I should say. I'm teaching myself. I'm facilitating for myself as well. Because it starts with us first. Is so many people are struggling because they're stuck. They don't know how to move out of that place of being stuck. The fact of the matter is, the Lord has shown me really clearly in my own journey. Have compassion on you first. Jesus said he looked out and he saw. And he said he looked out and he was moved with compassion because he saw them go. The sheep were all, astray. And the same thing with us. Help me, Lord, and help others to help facilitate a sense of compassion towards yourself. So that once you have that compassion, it's much easier to do the assessment on oneself to see how the factors all played a part in the product, how we see ourselves functioning today. And then grace can be poured out, and redemption and restoration and all forms of reconciliation.
Yeah. That's really powerful. It's hard.
It's hard for it.
This is interesting. You have a definition of a true power couple. We think of that sometimes in other ways, but the way that you come together to answer the need in the world. So how has it been, the journey of, you have your own life, your own education? So does Dr. Rupert. How has it been walking alongside and journeying together?
Interesting question. I would say, I'll start now and go backwards. I would say being First Lady at Roberts Wesleyan University, to see Maryann engage with the students, to see her having a location where she can just go and just be herself, and be in an environment where one of the number one things now with young people is mental health issues. And so it's almost like she's in Shangri-La, she's in heaven, because she's just dealing with all these people that she's like, oh my goodness, God is sending them my way. Now, going back to from the start, when I was at the church, I was a chief operating officer at the church, and she was in New York doing Wall Street and accounting and all that kind of stuff. And then I got called into ministry. We decided then, right, that you'd be at home and I would be working. But from a ministry perspective, we always felt, I speak for myself, you can speak as well. We always felt that God had a bigger purpose for our lives. We couldn't figure it out. So when the pastor at that time asked me to come join the church from an administrative executive pastor kind of role, we took it. And Maryann was right next to me for 16 years when I was at Christ Church. At that same time, it was at Christ Church when I got that revelation about who I was. We decided to start this nonprofit called the Center for Emotional and Spiritual Development, because we really believe in the emotional side of things. If I might just do a rabbit trail here, we understand the brain well, that the cortex is on top that just deal with facts. There's this thing called the amygdala that stores all emotions from the moment you were born. And then there is the prefrontal area. You take your facts, it comes down here, you take the emotion, and that's where decisions are made. We really believe that. But what really key is, in this part, every single emotion should be stored. So when you see somebody that looks like an uncle that hurts you, you're reacting to that person just like if it's an uncle. And so we're just learning these things as we're going along. We got into the deliverance part of things and understood that as well. And so as we're journeying, I'm journeying through churches from Christ Church to Life Christian Church. And Maryann is really engaging into this world that she has created, based on her own experience from childhood to now. And so she has a keen way of, when people come into our midst, to be able to see what's behind what's in front of her. Because of her experience, she can just say, okay, yeah, this is what's going on. That's a good thing. And her discernment, his ability to discern, is pretty high. And so the progress has been that. And she's on her own, taken on some things that she said, okay, God has called me to do this while we're still moving along together.
Yeah, and that I truly believe, if I may, and thank you, Rupert, for that, is the discernment, I believe, is given by God to not be judgmental. Because the fact of the matter is, if it wasn't for the mercy of God, where would we all be? So grace says, I will show you, whether it's to pray, intercede, or to come alongside and to bring about awareness. It's never to judge and to pull people away from Jesus. It's to push them towards the image of God. And so I appreciate how Rupert expounded on that. If I may also add, is that, Alicia and Vandalyn and Rupert, even ministry involves brokenness. And I say that to say that, coming alongside my husband in the years that he was in ministry, while I was on my journey of healing, I would say he was on his journey of healing. And together we were on our journey of healing. And then the fact is the common denominator is brokenness. We all have a form of brokenness, whether you're raised in a home with mental illness, you're raised in a home where there's divorce, or you're raised in a home where there's any form of addiction, whatever may be the case, perfectionism, performance orientation, whatever may be the case. But the thing is that Jesus comes to meet us in our brokenness. And King David blew it. Anyone can blow it. And at the end of the day, we still carry the image of God. And so what can we do to push even ministerial environments towards an understanding that help people, encourage people, develop compassion, to push them, spiritually form them, which I'm going back from my master's beginning in September at my teenage of, no, I'm not going to say anything, continuation at Regent University. I started my degree a long while back, and I'm starting to degree at Regent University, and I'm continuing it because in spiritual formation, because I want to become, it's my heart to see people truly formed spiritually, because that discipleship is such an important piece, and it incorporates the whole being, the spirit, the soul, the spirit, the soul, and the body. So I say that all to say, and in regards to how do I function, Vandalyn, alongside my husband, I really just have come to recognize over many years of whether it's being in ministry or being in corporate America, that, like I said earlier, we all are working towards becoming like Jesus. If we're in the sanctification process, which we all should be, right? As Christians, if we profess to be Christ followers, we should be moving in that direction. It doesn't make me or you or anyone better. It helps us to live life according to the pattern and the way that God ultimately wanted us to live. So however, what environment, whether he's at the university, whether he's been at the church, in the church setting, whether he's been in corporate America, I've always taken this view, 3 pillars. Look at everything in life through the eyes and ears of redemption, restoration, and reconciliation, because at some point in any of those arenas, you're going to have to face those 3 components.
That's so good. I love good alliteration. Redemption, restoration, and reconciliation.
That's right. The 3 pillars.
You mentioned Savannah and Stephen. Those are your teenage children.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay. Well, they're 14 going on.
Yes.
They are wonderful twins. Stephen is the most caring individual there was. He has a soft heart. for people, but he's also extremely outgoing. Savannah is the more serious one who would come into a room and just sit back and just check out everybody to try to perceive what's going on. She and Maryann are like this from a discernment perspective because they're always checking things out. Stephen, so outgoing. We sometimes call him the mayor.
If you go anywhere.
We're at, I think we're at Newark Airport, and so where's Stephen? And we look over there. He's having an intense conversation with a passenger that we've never met before. What could he be talking? And they're like talking like,
yes, very.
And I'm like, what could they be possibly talking about? But he's that outgoing. They're big on soccer. My daughter travel team and stuff. And you can say some stuff.
Yeah, sure. So they're very, very precious. And Vandalyn, Alicia, Rupert, this is fascinating to me because even in their journeys, Savannah has been going to a Christian school since kindergarten, whereas Stephen has been in a public school in a charter setting. And if I may say, their situation does ultimately prove this whole need for us to have this redemptive, reconciliatory, and restorative components in our hearts. This way of thinking and discerning is that even though Savannah has been at a Christian school and she's been so Bible-like, they memorize scripture every week. They're memorizing. They get tested on the memorization. She'll quote you a scripture. She'll quote us a scripture. Stephen isn't very fond, even though we have our little Bible studies at home at times and all that. He moves away from the Bible. So we're always trying to input that dimension. I will say that they each carry their own need for understanding and embracing the fact that they've been created in the image of God. And I see it even in their, I call them shenanigans at 14. It's shenanigans. Like, it's just shenanigans. Like, why are you talking like that? Why are you, we're humans. We're in the flesh, but we all need Jesus. And so as it relates to them, we love them deeply. They got 2 new guinea pigs in the past few weeks. They're taking care of these guinea pigs like you would never believe, especially Stephen. But we're working on their things too. We're having fun. We're disciplining, but we're also really aware in line with 5 traumatized people in a car that we all are working on our brokenness.
So you didn't talk about the phone.
Yes.
So we have we said no phone.
Yeah.
In this modern 2025, no phone. 2023, no phone. 2024, no phone.
Wow.
We were the worst parent ever in the history of humankind.
Everyone else has it.
Everybody has it. Why can't we have it? And we decided.
Yes. It's a year and a half.
We said, okay, we're going to get you a phone, but there's some limited hours. You can't just be on it all the time. And they got the phone. Mm-hmm. And the things that we see on TV and hear on TV about phones and teenagers, we literally are seeing it in front of us, where I tell my daughter to put the phone down, and she does not have the ability to get off Instagram.
Yeah, it's like
it's just hooked. And so we had to sign on to some programs.
Custodio.
Make a plug for Custodio, because on Custodio, you can monitor everything there. And one of the beautiful things that Custodio has, it has the ability to just press one button and it shuts off the internet for them. So when they're doing stuff, and I said, okay, go do this. Boom, there you go. I mean, for us, that's a godsend to have that capability, especially for teenagers or so. And they just want to do it. And that's what I'm saying. At this age, Maryann mentioned it, they're individuating, meaning they're being their own self kind. And at that time, it's usually where the rough things start happening.
Yes, the rough things, rough patches.
So we're going through it now. We're in the midst of it, but we're having fun because the good thing is, someone used this term, what man has done, men will do. Mm-hmm. Meaning, what somebody has gone through, you can go through too. And so tons of people have gone through this tumultuous 13, 14-year-olds, about 15.
Yeah.
And we're looking forward to 16 and soon. And I know those are coming, but
it's intense.
we're good.
It's intense.
Well, you speak of them with such joy and with smiles. The phone certainly is a challenge.
Yeah.
But what has been your greatest challenge raising them? And what is your greatest wish for them? As parents?
Sure. So the greatest wish for them. So if I may, because I drive Savannah to school in the morning, I'll use this as an example as how I could, qualify one of the greatest wishes I have for, let's say, Savannah, because I'm with her a lot in this vehicle and we have these intense conversations, is asking God what our gifts are. And then praying into that with my husband, we talk about it. Rupert just referenced it earlier, that there's this cohesion there's with her and I recognize in the Lord really it's manifesting that she's very prophetic and has very strong discernment. Mm-hmm. So my greatest and our greatest, I would say, Rupert, you can speak for yourself after, but is to see her become all that God has for her. And so I'm already taking the cues from the Holy Spirit, and I'm training her. So she'll tell me an incident in school, and I'll say, "Okay, Savannah, let's pause. Let's pause a second. Do you hear anything?" She says, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, first of all, the Bible, it talks about gossip, right? You heard that?" And then she'll say, "Yeah, Mommy, it is gossip." And then I'll say, "Okay, let's just pause another few minutes." So I'm facilitating an environment for her where she can hear God for herself. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing it intentionally. It's my way because I have that quality time in the car with her to foster that. So the answer is we want to see them. If she's going to be a soccer player, that's fantastic. If Stephen's going to be a tradesman, he's a STEM boy. We want to see that because that's who God STEM boy, right?
He's a STEM boy.
It's science, technology. Yeah. It's like that is where, the joy of their existence will come because not everyone is cut out to be going to an Ivy League school or a charter school or a Christian school. It is what God, his identity for them. So that is, would you?
Yeah, I mean, I
and what's the greatest?
You want, sometimes as parents, you want your kid to be like you, right? And sometimes you see things different. And as parents, we have to accept that, the first thing. I might go here and did all these things, but maybe Stephen is not cut out for that. Stephen, if you meet Stephen, as I told him, he's a mayor and all that stuff, but Stephen will argue anything, no matter what it is. You say the sun is shining, and he says, well, it might be shining, but if you look this way, it's not shining. You're like, so Stephen, it's just shining. It's Stephen at that. And so every single thing, we're convinced, I'm convinced, that he'll be an attorney or something. Every single thing is a discussion, and I want to know, and so we just seeing that and realizing that God is speaking something, we might just sing and say, oh, yeah. You're going to say, oh, he just likes to debate things all the time. But his gift might be in that debate. You just got to foster that. And say, okay, God, you've given us this gift. Let's just see what you want to do with it and not impose on ourselves. It's not easy. And it's not easy. Trust me, it's not easy. When because sometimes you just don't know what God is doing. Yeah. But he's doing something. You got to be, okay, God, I'm not understanding what you're doing, but okay, let me just trust that you're doing it because we know you're going to do it right. But at the same time, we just want to control it. That's really hard. It's like I can't help it. It's very comical, especially when we lived in New Jersey. Savannah would go to a store, okay? She'd be shopping with Dad, and she would come home, and I'd find flowers on the kitchen island. And she comes into the room, and she would outright blatantly say, Mommy, I told Daddy to get you those flowers. I got out straight, no smiles.
And she has an ability at a very young age. She cares very, very deeply. There's many stories behind her life story, but suffice to say, this is not the forum for it. But I will say that is a depiction of a level of, I would even say, discernment. She has an ability to see mommy needs that. She has that ability already at a very young age of empathy. She doesn't, but then she's very challenging. So, honey, Vandalyn asked, what about the most challenging thing you said, Vandalyn?
Most challenging is to not, and I said it before, I kind of elaborate a little bit more, not impose on them what it is you want them to do or to be. That's been challenging because, you want, somebody said that fear is lack of control. And we're always trying to control things. And then if we can't control it, we get fearful because we just don't know what the outcome is going to be. And so for us as parents, we want to control, exactly what they're going to be and what they're going to do. But at the same time, as you're trying to control it, let's put it this way, there's another dimension where they're individuating and they're becoming their own person. And yet at the same time you want to do this, and yet at the same time you're thinking about their future. Every parent wants the best for their future. So the challenging part is trying to understand all of what's happening at the same time from a Christ-like perspective. Like, God, I just don't understand what you're doing, Lord. But I got to trust that you're doing it right.
And the thing is with Rupert and I, one of the challenges, and I think it's important in this space to be able to say, this is sort of like a holy space to me in saying this, because I think all of us parents experience it at some point in time, is the parenting styles and the friction of one child gravitating to one parent and knowing that at this, these manipulative zones that occur and deception too, because, remember, they're all broken. We're all broken, looking for the redemption and the restoration, the reconciliation. But fact of the matter is we now talk about it. And that's beautiful. Yeah. That's overcoming the challenge because they know how to push and pull when it works for them. And for us, it's getting to the nitty gritty of saying, Rupert, we need to both be in alignment. Like he and I, are we in alignment with this? Because they'll read it so quickly and they will come. And so that's
they see an opening, they're going to run right through it.
I've got a little. I see what you're talking about. Developing in those days. This has been such a fascinating conversation through marriage, through ministry in marriage, parenthood. Maybe we could wrap it up with a couple of questions. Before we started recording, Vandalyn and I were talking about singles in the church. As a couple about to celebrate your silver anniversary, do you think it's harder to meet people in the church now than it was for you 25 years ago?
Let me introduce to you the young lady who oversaw our co-leader of the single church. You forgot about that, did you?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And so, Alicia, you did say, what is it easier? If you don't mind.
Do you think it's harder these days? Because as Vandalyn and I were chatting before the show, she has some ideas about how to address this. She thinks technology can be part of it. I'm just curious for your perspective. Do you think it's harder now than it used to be to meet someone to get married?
Wow, that's such a profound, and there's so many different dynamics that I can pull from. But suffice to say, I think the one that I would like to just expound on is, I do believe with all of the different distractions and, social media being a very huge distraction, to the way the brain is even functioning there and then communication, because now the thoughts are coming through in smaller phrases and the connections and the eye activity, the eye gate is not being used I believe, as God would want it to be used. So I'm talking to you and I'm choosing to look at you in the eye. But if I know, and my conditioning is my phone's right in my pocket, okay, look real quickly and look down. Or you go into a store, and unfortunately you see this all the time. They're in the aisle with the applesauce and they're looking at their phone, and the boss is like probably down 3 aisles later. But hey, I can do this. And so are they as attentive to the customer and the consumer? Let's use that as an example. So it's a distraction. And if I may also add to that, Alicia and Rupert, is that the distraction is more paramount. And it is more, it speaks to disintegration and disconnection, which when it's obviously compounded with emotional dysregulation, we have a greater disparity. And hence, in answer to your question, I do think it's more difficult today because the connection and the substance upon which healthy relationships are built are not even given a chance. If I could equate it to what's going on in many different ministerial settings, is formation is so significant, but discipleship is significant, but there's so many distractions. So, yes. No, I think it's
and my addition to that is absolutely yes. Maryann just kind of tied the bullet to it that 20, 30 years ago, the level of technology, the level of distractions were not as prevalent as they are today. And there are so many different ways, actually. The technology has helped, right, in that it connects the world closer. But by connecting the world closer, it created so many distractions in the connection that it creates disintegration where people they're just all over the place. There's no centering. Christ is the center of everything. And so, somebody can meet somebody. They can jump on whatever happened. They meet somebody. But that's just the beginning. You have to get to know them, get to understand them. Is this person, what was this person's history? How their background? Do they seem like they're here? Are they here with me, but not here? I mean, all those things, because I think the difficulty is there's a lot more distraction. And I think what helps the process is, one, knowing what distractions are, but two, be able to discern that they're a distraction. And I think that's where some of the difficulty lies, especially for people nowadays. Because, my daughter on Instagram, who clicked? I got to see click. Who likes? Who likes?
I got
big
46
picture
likes.
of skin, big picture of things. Yes. I just like, who cares who likes? But sometimes people use that as the measure of it. And you might not really care about it. I might care about it. Then we have to get together. And then this becomes a distraction from me getting to understanding them.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, last question. And I think this will bring us full circle to the conversation that we had with you, Dr. Hayles. Mrs. Hayles, you are from Brooklyn. You came to faith at NYU, no less, right? What is your heart and vision for New York City? As you look into this next chapter for Roberts, what do you see? What do you want for New York and for Christian education?
Thank you for asking that, Alicia. It's a loaded, packed question, but I'm going to just try my best. So what I would desire is to see, because ultimately at the end of the day, I do believe the answer to everything is anyone and every young man, young woman of any age, adults too, right, is coming to know Jesus Christ. But even another step further is truly coming into the knowledge and the experience, the authentic experience of knowing you've been created in the image of the creator of the universe. And there is nothing that can change that fact, but just a growing experience, a godlike journey that progressively moves young people, moves people of any age closer and closer to that understanding. And it takes intentional slowing down to move forward with a healthy because we want to see people become glory carriers, meaning they're carrying a dimension of the heart of God that can bring about transformation just because he is embedded in that space in that person's life. And they carry that. They are carriers. They're ministers. And you don't have to be using scripture all the time. They can be walking in the power of the Holy Spirit and changing lives and changing environments and changing institutions and organizations, and not having to be on their phones all the time for stimulation, but they can be stimulated inwardly by that intimacy with God.
Yes, that's beautiful. Well, thank you to my guest host, Vandalyn. It was great to have you here with me today. And thank you both. You're both glory carriers. And it's just such a pleasure to be with you in the same space, to share a conversation with you. And I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
It's our pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you.
To both of you.
Thank you, Alicia. Appreciate it. And to my wonderful wife. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you for tuning in to the Faithly Stories podcast. We pray this episode gave you the encouragement you needed to continue on your journey. The Faithly Stories podcast is brought to you by Faithly, an online community committed to empowering church leaders, pastors, staff, and volunteers. The Faithly digital platform offers innovative and practical tools and resources to enhance connection, foster collaboration, and promote growth within the church and ministry space. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help reach more listeners like you. Stay tuned for more uplifting tales from the front lines of ministry on the Faithly podcast. Stay bold, stay faithful, and never underestimate the power of your own story.